on the stage, even if the matches might have been a bit uncomfortable. They got there in the end. Now as we enter the first pick and ban, no surprise to see TF taken off the board alongside the Pantheon, now the Taliyah.
There's a ton of champions that we have seen GENG drafted towards time and time again. I've seen this team pick B1 Azir more times than I can really put into words. Ahri is another that obviously is going to be very high on the prio list. We've seen the nerfs to champions like her, like the Vi as well, just not really matter. Strength of the kit coming through most. And for GENG, as you point out, we have not seen a lot of them, even in the LCK. Don't forget, they played the full 5 games against Humble Life, found the reverse sweep, but that was the only series they played. Last time we saw this team face off before, that was in the final series against Bro. And that's feels like a lifetime ago.
It's not a lot of games on stage. So there is room for variance, but despite that, still the favorites. Ahri taken away. So a lot of the utility mid laners off the board, both the Ahri and the Taliyah alongside the Twisted Fate. Rumble, a pretty classic ban for G2. We'll see if the Jace follows. But obviously so many powerful champions still up and available.
Final ban imminent here. Let's see what we're going to end up with. Keen. The Keen Sante has really been back as, oh, I love that. The Nidalee ban, obviously, theoretically a flex, but realistically, that's always going to go to Canyon. He's one of the few players that has maintained it, and I mentioned it before.
It's like you're a prophet.
And it's B1 is here.
And/or this is the region that you cast, but...
Yeah, I mean, it's also Chovy. This is just how it goes. And we also saw it with the bans, right? Particularly that Ahri ban, we do often see come through. The Taliyah has been one of the big counter picks, but that was, I think, justifiably banned away by G2, not wanting to give that one over. As we see the Varus come through on Sama. Varus definitely a pick with a lot of power. And an early Maokai pick, definitely, I think, a big risk. This champion really good when it comes to disengaging, but not really the proactive powers that once upon a time it was.
And remember, when G2 struggled in that first series versus Furia, this was the fallback.
Yep.
It was instant Varus, Maokai, and we saw the Maokai almost permabanned in the rest of their series, not wanting to give them that same level of comfort. But unfortunately, comfort for G2 is also comfort for the side of GENG. Yeah. First pick Azir, the room for a counter pick, but when you're the best player in the world, I don't think you're too concerned about what anyone else is going to bring. And now alongside Canyon Xin, most played champion in spring, and a champion that can, both in the early game, take over, and in these mid to late game fights against the Varus, if it's that poke build, mitigate so much of that damage.
As it is, it looks like the Renekton and the Azir to come through for GENG. Yet another one of their patterns. They, despite the roster changes, can't seem to escape. Does come through. This has been historically a good pick with, or into the Azir rather. We've also seen it pair with Maokai a lot. There's really easy setup with the ultimates.
Yeah. And it feels like G2 have recognized some of the things that did work for them in the play-in stage, right? Caps having these picks with agency. We've seen good games with the Ryze, the Tristana, the Yone as well. Of course, champion that's usually banned away, but managed to make it through. Going into Chovy's Azir is a tall task, and if you really want to cast your mind back, this has been a flex for Broken Blade before, although I doubt we'll see it here. Is now the Jhin taken off the board for Ruler. Had a bit of a rough early laning phase in the finals against HLE, against Viper, specifically in the context of that 2v2. But don't want to give him that utility option. Don't want him to be able to, stay back at arm's reach.
It's been for sure the weak spot of GENG, and obviously weak spot comes within the context of being.
This is one of the few teams where you have to add that caveat every time.
You have
it's
to
kind of annoying. I'll be honest.
They're undefeated, but we did see it actually be a problem for them. The reason why that series went to 5 games was mostly due to Ruler in particular struggling, and Duro to a certain extent as well, particularly when it comes to the laning phase. And they take away the Jhin, which is an amazing neutralizing pick. Works really well when you have an aggressive topside, as they do here. A lot of range, and then the Ezreal, because obviously the ability to not engage with any of the champions on G2, plus it being one of the Ruler's counter picks, or comfort picks rather, does make a ton of sense. The Renata should not be a surprise. That champion with Varus in particular makes for a extremely brutal lane, as the Alistar also taken off the board here.
Trying to get comfort out of the hands of Lebrov, while there are a lot of premier options when it comes to engage supports, that's been the one that he's looked the most comfortable on. Ansama taking his time, flashing a favorite champion. What is the option going to be here for G2? Jax into the top side. Broken Blade, obviously a lot of people skeptical about his level of performance, but the potential You know, we know how good Counter-Strike can be in this matchup. If he can survive, if he can weather the storm, Jax can get a lot done.
It's not just into the Renekton, right? It's also into the Zinza. We even had a period where we saw the Jax jungle come back specifically because Zinza was continuously blinded. As the Lucian Braum will come through here. Blinding Braum, I do think, always feels a little bad. And it is going to be the Rakan here for Labrov. Obviously, the Rakan does allow you to follow up very nicely, I think, particularly when it comes to like Caps' ultimate, when it comes to Skewmon, using the ultimate more aggressive. But it does mean that your laning phase really suffers, right? Rakan, not known for his lane. I also think that when it comes to the 2v2, the Rakan and Varus combination, not necessarily super exciting. When it comes to topside, though, I do think it looks good for G2. The obvious issue with this draft is that there is a lack of magic damage.
Sure.
GENG most likely going to itemize into that as well. But given the fact that they don't have a true tank, it's really only Keen and maybe Canyon, if he gets to enough items that I think are really going to be able to benefit from this. And I think you look at these drafts for either team, and they're probably happy with what they got.
Yeah, certainly comfort, it feels like, on both sides. GENG, I think if we take nameplates off, I was a little worried, you know, how much upfront reliable engage they have. It's the Zen, it's the Renekton going at you, paired with the Braum. But this is the team that can pilot compositions with a lot of nuance, can find those angles.
That's good engage.
They do have Azir. When he hits 3 items, I don't like relying on the slide and glide, but if anyone can do it, it's Chovy, right? On the upside for G2, you've got good engage options across the board. It's easy to see how in an even game state, this composition will function. But the question, and one more caveat on the endless list of caveats in the context of playing against this GENG lineup is, can you make it through that lane phase? Can you survive the earlier stages of the game? Can you exploit the same weaknesses that we've highlighted? It may not even matter on this international stage. Vancouver comes alive for game 1. Of course, you can see the runes at the bottom of the screen. Nothing too crazy, although it looks like it will be the Lethality Varus for Hans Sama. So wants to poke, wants to stay at arm's reach, does make the Zen a bit better, does make the Braum a bit better, but also staying away from a Zen and a Renekton does seem
Yeah, I don't think you wanna walk up. So we take a look at the road that G2 so far have made it through, but obviously not the expectation in terms of results. When it comes to the scores of the series, 3 and 2 in both. Hard-fought battles as well.
Yeah. When you talked about it for GENG, right? 1 best of 5 essentially in the last month of League of Legends play. G2 have played 13 games in the last few days. So in terms of comfort on this stage, in terms of time spent here, getting situated, it's a small advantage, but it might matter. Early lane phase, though, you can see already, Chovy not afraid to step up and just start harassing. See when Caps can get that first back. Boots 2 might help out a bit, but still going to be a bit of a struggle early on.
Going to be looking at the pathing of both junglers as well. Looks like they're on opposite paths right now. Do have Canyon clearing from bot to top. Opposite here for Skewmon. We'll see if they're going to be looking for either. Both these junglers are reasonably strong when it comes to finding early ganks. A lot of CC available. A lot more damage, obviously, for the Xin, but Maokai CC, particularly with the laners that he does have, it still feels relatively threatening. As we do see, as expected, Chovy having prio there early. And the Renekton and Jax matchup, I think level 1, Jax actually does really well. As we can see, Broken Blade does actually get the prio. The fun sticks around until like maybe level 3, 4. And then after that, it gets rough for a good amount of time. And then obviously, down the line, Jax is going to have a great time once he gets his items. I think around that 2-item breakpoint is where the Renekton just doesn't quite have the threat anymore.
That is a long period of time. Level 4 to 2 items. Yeah, it can be be a bit tough,
well,
but
you should still be safe. You know, you just can't really decide what happens in the lane.
Yeah. See if he's going to get some support where the attention could be from the jungle. You highlighted the Maokai earlier, obviously pathing down towards the bottom side. Canyon moving up top side. The Counter-Strike, good interactions into both champions, but with how far forward Broken Blade is pushed and with Counter-Strike now down, brief window, but Canyon still prioritizing finishing those camps, not in a great position as Caps level 3 not looking too bad. This is obviously the guy who was kind of the core of G2 scraping through, barely managing to make it. And of course, if you're just joining us, Caps, that's been the reputation for a long time, but wasn't clear in that first day of the tournament, those first few games. Definitely feels like a step up in performance thus far as bot lane looking a bit quiet. Unsurprisingly, Rakan sustained earlier does help mitigate a bit. Chovy now level 4. Looks unfazed by everything Caps is doing.
That's generally how it goes. Chovy obviously known for his laning phase. Caps a little low, but shouldn't be too worried. This is often how the matchup goes. Has Resolve second as well as a Doran shield, so unless something goes colossally wrong, should just be biding his time until he at least gets his ultimate available. That's when you start to get a little bit more threat. Besides that, nothing really expected when it comes to the early 2v2, particularly towards the bot side of the map. With the Braum, obviously, if you can get a good passive stack off on the very specifically, there are some angles, but outside of that, your engage kind of sucks, and also, you're playing into Rakan.
You know, first game on international stage is always a bit slower, which does give us a bit of time to remind people about this team. And Chovy, of course, his history. There was a kind of a meme from production about Choki. It was a reputation for a number of years, and it feels like now, as he's kind of the undisputed #1 player, the MSI victory last year, it feels like all of that has faded away. But this is a guy who has been on the cusp of that level of greatness for so long, but it is just without a doubt now, you can see amongst MSI mids, domestically, this is the man to beat. This is the player to fear. He is the boogeyman of the mid lane. Of course, he's still playing Azir, right? It's not the most crazy aggressive early lane, but he is the player that I think we have to keep our eye on.
This is going to be trying to farm up a storm, as he always does. We do see Labrov showing here on mid wave. Not really going to get too much. Teleport is used though, so any health that you can get off of Chovy is a nice little win. As Dragon does get started up, we have the swap come through from GENG. Not going to be matched by G2, and that does mean that Broken Blade is going to be put in an awkward situation, and GENG not going to be contesting this Dragon early on. Do know this is going on, of course, as they have the ward in the pit.
But also just, I think, completely content to zone Broken Blade away.
Yep.
Keen, much more comfortable in the context of that matchup. Ansama does have a bit of burst damage, but it's just so hard to chunk through that Renekton. A lot of natural sustain if you do want to push those waves in.
Yeah, it really is one of those situations where the champion is just a lot better when it comes to the early wave clear, to the sustain that he has available, and once he has his dominance available, obviously becomes a nightmare to dive. We do see the TP come in now. Does mean that there will be a summoner advantage there for GENG. But as many have pointed out, GENG not necessarily known for their aggressive early games when it comes to fighting, right? They are still, I think, a very proactive team when it comes to movement on the map, when it comes to playing for objectives. Doesn't necessarily translate into fist fights the way that we see with some of the other teams here at the tournament.
Yeah, like BLG, obviously a lot of those early tower dives.
T1, yeah.
Trade T1, much more of a hallmark of that style. Of course, Grub's the next objective on both sides' minds as Caps gets a little bit aggressive, but Canyon is here. Quick snapback makes it pretty easy. Soul Unbound keeping Caps safe, but should be a free recall for Chovy. G2 have push on top side. But of course, down that TP, as you mentioned earlier, and Broken Blade playing quite cautiously. Needs to hit that level 6 you can see on the side of your screen.
Yeah, we're in the zone we talked about earlier.
Yeah, what do you guys normally do here? I didn't
just catch waves.
I haven't played enough Pokemon recently to keep up with you. I'm so sorry. I should have.
Oh, when nothing is happening? Well, I don't know. We see where the conversation takes us. We have plenty of opportunity to talk about that. I'm always down for a journey down a rabbit hole.
A little journey.
I'm very easily distracted. Yeah.
Did you do anything for Canada today?
We went to a bridge, a little hike.
I was giving. Yeah, I like that.
Good time. Very enjoyable.
Bridge.
Yeah, I mean the nature here has been absolutely incredible. One of the best parts of the trip so far. How about you? Any recommendations for the crowd?
Side. Now
Hans?
casting a top lane gank. As Hans is backing up. Nice stun from Durham Ruler, but won't amount to too much there. They get the cleanse and the heal, so big for a potential follow-up play, forcing Hans and Labrov to be a little bit more cautious, and some furious pings going down on the top side. I think not confident as to where Canyon is, so respecting a potential gank to come through.
Yeah, courtesy of the spellbook there, as Duro had the exhaust available to get some cooldowns. Not going to lead to too much more, as we do have both junglers towards the top side of the map here. Canyon is on his way, but with the flash is still available, I don't know how much they can really get, and is waiting in the brush.
Pull back from Lavrov, quick on the trigger. General awareness that they were at risk, so playing with a bit more caution is Caps and Skumon trying to take a bit of control, but half health for Caps. Does have the Vamp Scepter, but this is where it gets awkward. You can see how far forward Chovy is posturing.
Skumon cryo on top, need to be careful.
Wants to contest one of these. Caps is just getting chunked out. Skewmon sticking around is risky. Hansama stepping too far forward to check the ward. A nice little trap baited by the side of GENG. Exhaust responded by the cleanse. Labrov still standing for now. They wanted to clear that control ward, weren't ready for Ruler to be standing, waiting in the brush. As the Void Grubs, all three, going to the side of GENG. It's so awkward for Skewmon. He spent so much time spectating, maybe hoping for a bit of a fumble, a bit of a misstep. Canyon did not give it to him.
And this is exactly what I was talking about earlier. GENG in particular are extremely adept at taking an oppressive laning state, turning it into objective. It's very straightforward, right? Chovy just has prio, is able to both draw Skewmon to him while simultaneously chunking out caps. And then because of the earlier play towards the bot side, there's not really a way for Hans as well as for Labrov to contest. They still try, don't really give too much up, but they're still not able to contest any of these grubs. They do go the way over of GENG. And yeah, this is an LCK pace game, Dracos. I'm having a great time. This is... I love this, you know, it's the slow back and forth,
to be fair, I also,
the chess-like movements.
I like this. You think things are going to happen, things
Yeah.
happen.
No, they don't.
The world makes sense.
Nothing's going to happen. It's fine.
They
gonna embrace it.
sense for a reason. Maybe
Yeah.
sometimes that reason's beyond me, but I can understand. Of course, for Caps, we'll keep it simple. If you've watched International in the last 2 years, you know Blade of the Rune King. Always the thing to keep an eye out for on the Yone, as well as level 13, pretty important. Max rank on the E, lower cooldown, higher damage amp. Caps just trying to contest a bit of vision, but Jordo's exactly where he needs to be.
Max Drake is coming up. Do think that GENG is going to be a lot more proactive about contesting this. A single Drake, not that big a deal. They also did get the grubs in the extended trade, right? Took a couple of minutes, but they did secure that. They also secured the lead for Keen towards the top side of the map. But particularly when you have this Crocodile and you want to fight early, as Keen has found Broken Blade.
Good initial trade. Dominus popped. Jack's popping ulti as well for the extra resistance. Caps pushback will take a tower shot. Not an ult for ult trade, though. So potentially a window that Caps can try and capitalize on, but it's so tough against an experienced player, especially with boots already.
They're still starting this, and Keen still has TP available, so does Broken Blade, but he's going to go for a base now. GENG, I think, looking for the contest. Wave in mid is crashing. Chovy's on his way.
Canyon, can he find a way into the pit? Labrov locked up for a moment. Maokai ulti over the wall. Eyes on the dragon. Who's going to be able to get it? Caps. Beautiful start to the fight. Knock up coming through as well. Ruler's trying to back off, but they're getting lower and lower. Calling over the wall, but Ruler's in no man's land. And finally, Keen has come through, but the tower finishes the job. The kill goes to Labrov. Ultimately, it's the Drake for G2.
Massive win there for G2, rather. It's the combination of that Maokai together with Caps, finding multiple people, and GENG just straight up caught off guard as Caps is fine, holding onto his flash as well. Cool cucumber there. The Drake goes to D2 because obviously they were first to the objective, but they get the TP from Keen as well as a favorable trait when it comes to the kills.
Definitely. Unfortunately, that gold advantage does go to Labrov. It means a quick early lock-it, which will help mitigate some of that upfront burst damage. Keen only getting stronger in the context of the 1v1, but that was kind of awkward. That was a bit of a weird play. I think GENG not respecting the setup there. G2 in a very good position with that Maokai ultimate, something we highlighted in pick and ban, right? The ease of execution for this composition.
It was the ult difference. The fact that Cap still had his ultimate available. Like, yes, Chovy chunked him, but it doesn't quite matter as much here. They're also too quick on the trigger on that ultimate, so that Caps has a beautiful setup. Labrov follows up immediately. 3 men knock up, and then by the time Chovy arrives, already too late, really. Same for Keen, gets an exit kill, but you're not really going to be too happy about that. Early skirmish, going the way of G2. And I'm going to also be fair, you need those.
I think all of us.
Big confidence there from the side of G2 as Broken Blade and Keen now going toe-to-toe once again. You mentioned it before, but as more items come through for the Jacks, this does get a bit easier. Keen holding onto a gold and experienced lead. Broken Blade has to be careful. The angle for the double dash. Quick Q, baiting the counter-strike, can re-dash. Broken Blade respects it and will already back away.
Yeah, they didn't really know where Skewmon was, so don't think Keen wanted to take the risk to go in. If the Maokai is there, obviously he can be in big trouble. As I was saying, I do also think as G2, you need to get these early leads, as many as you can. Camtech Drake, not really what you're looking for. If this is a mountain, right? If this is a Hextech, I think you're going to be feeling a lot better about the 2 Drake lead. But any lead you can get against GENG early feels like a necessity because of how inevitable this team has been and how hard it has been to actually take them down.
You mentioned it before, right? Where we have seen hiccups, it's been in the earlier stages of the game. When we get to mid-game, their movement around the map, their setup objectives, their individual skill often becomes overwhelming to handle as Caps finds himself in trouble. Defensive ult out. We'll trade 1-for-1 on that, but manages to live. GENG, though, with control of the mid lane. Nothing really to play for here is LeBron.
A lot of members there. Looks like they're not going to fall for the trap. And Caps does live. Nicely done there with the snapback on the ultimate, but Chovy still has the damage. Nashor's done, so those autos can come through. Azir can still be a colossal menace, and despite the kill lead, we do see GENG, as they always do, slowly inching forward in gold lead. It's these continuous side lane waves, these crashes that come through. Even in the previous play, yes, G2 was able to find a good fight, but they did lose a full wave because Caps dropped the wave to go help set up that fight.
The cost to find those advantages, and you can see in the mid lane, the gold looks close, but it's because of the kills and assists. Chovy, as expected, living up to his namesake with almost 20 CS advantage, although will lose a bit to that tower here as he's decided to move up to the top lane. Of course, one of the strengths of G2, if they find a lead, is these side laners, but because GENG already got the early grubs, some of that threat to the towers is at least mitigated. And now, as you highlighted, Dragon stacking, an easy avenue for G2 to try and force a fight on their terms if they can keep that control. And Caps, with this extra lifesteal, you can see really starting to hurt.
Really does. As a ruler, this spot he is somewhat notorious for. Needs to be careful. Has been one of his biggest weaknesses, really within the context of his career, but specifically in this year, I feel like it's happened even more. Getting caught on the ruler spot just on a mid wave, using a dash forward when you're not allowed to, as they go in on Labrov, but that's a Rakan. So Canyon not going to be able to really do anything. And this is, I do think, where we see the fact that Canyon, his CC is wind up, needs to get 3 autos off. The other member of his team that has CC that's reliable is Duro, who is Braum. Takes a while.
I mean, enough said, right? No one needs you to explain that one any further. We've all played Braum. We know what it's like. Ruler, though, quick culling. This is the power of the pick, especially as we get closer to that level 11 mark. More items under his belt. It's the poke. So does Herald secured. Control of mid, leveraged, GENG threatening. And while, yes, if they're trying to find those picks, those quick engages, they don't have the best tools. If they get set up first on an objective, fighting into Braum and Azir and a Renekton is a death sentence. So G2 need to find a way to be ahead. Last time you mentioned before, sacrificing waves, being willing to give up a bit of CS, a bit of gold to be first on the objective. In the long run can come back to bite you, but it's definitely an option for G2.
GENG this time set up first in the river. If it isn't for Caps getting one of the big engages, is it actually kind of hard for them to also get on top of GENG? The disengage is really good with that Braum. Duro is already a little bit low. Is keen. TP's in. Possibility for a salt win here for G2.
Set up off to the side. G2 second on the objective, but here comes the Maokai ultimate. Ruler sidestepping, crucially. Caps looking for the knockup, but already going in is Keen on the side, and he's going to get cut down. Knock to the backside is LeBron. Bomb onto Chovy. The Azir gone. Damage deleted. G2 find another fight by the Drake.
And GENG get caught sleeping. Keen goes way too deep. No one there to back him up. And that salt point secured here for G2. Another bunch of kills going over. As we take another look here, you see, again, the power of that CC. The Maokai ult just getting so much value, splitting up the fight, and it's a segmented engage. First Broken Blade goes in, gets some cooldowns, and then Keen just a little bit too far forward. The rest of the team is clearly more occupied with taking the dragon, and then right there, the fact that LeBron gets on top of Chovy, charms him, and sets him up for a great ultimate from Caps. Really big deal.
Quick play on the side lane. Caps snaps through. We'll be able to pull back, flash away. Q3 still living for a moment, but Chovy gets the job done. Shut down for GENG.
Definitely necessary there for GENG. Caps and kind of running the game so far. Kill going over to the Azir. That also is going to be the bot lane secure. There's still a Herald as well for GENG. That was back-to-back. Honestly, great fights from G2. But as Hanwha Life learned as well, actually taking down GENG, gonna need a lot more where that came from. But that Maokai and that Yone, that combo so far has proven deadly.
And GENG probably playing a bit more respect around those objectives, as now it is the soul on the line. 3.5 minutes, getting closer to Otacon as well. Caps off to a tear despite the CS deficit. Doing a lot of work here. And I think for G2, coming out of those interviews, we expected some progress, some improvement, but already a much stronger start to this series than I think any of the ones that they played in play-ins. But that said, a strong start against GENG, as you highlighted, is not enough. They need to play flawlessly. They can't afford to let Chovy just continue to accrue this gold, because it doesn't matter how many kills Caps has if Chovy's just getting more items.
Still a big deal, though, right? Yes, GENG have had slow starts at tournaments before. Not something that we are not used to seeing from the Orc, but I think particularly Labrov in this first game had, I think, a really rough planes, not really able to find the consistent impact. We saw the Alistair be banned away, but thus far, 100% kill participation here on the Rakan. Been a large part of many of the plays thus far as mid lane, now being sieged here by GENG.
Onsama stepping up, laying down the hail of arrows. His Broken Blade lays a bit of damage down, but tanks 2 tower shots. Definitely not ideal. Keen keeping the fight going. Broken Blade can't afford to stick around. That AoE damage is going to hurt, but Skewmon coming in the blink of an eye, offers an exit and a quick death for Keen.
And Keen, he sees a tasty food for the crocodile, and guess what? It was bait all along. Broken Blade finds his teammate Skewmon arriving in a perfect moment of time, and notably, if Keen doesn't go for that and just stays near his turret, it's a win for GENG. They get the mid lane turret, the siege with the Herald is successful, but instead, basically an even trade, keeps the gold even, and in about 1 minute and 50, we are going to get to that possible soul fight at like close to 20 minutes.
True, but if there's one man who might be able to make enough money to get enough items to make the difference, it's Chovy. As you can see the coin base gold graph here. A lot of minions. Power farming on the side lane, close to what looks like a Rylai's second.
Oh, this finish it now. That's a big deal. Looking at the item finishes, not quite there yet for Broken Blade. Despite the kills that he's been able to pick up, not quite there yet for Caps, but Ruler, Chovy, both sitting on 2. We'll see if that makes the difference, because thus far, G2 have had much better team fights here in the 5v5.
And I think a lot of it for the side of GENG comes down to, can they get set up first? In the previous fight, the answer was yes, but the Maokai still able to make the difference. The Yone still there, but they've got more items under their belt now. The threat of a culling. G2 have to be careful.
Are they going to just start this, try and force cooldowns? Wouldn't surprise me. Vault wave being pushed out. 2 item spikes are there. It looks like GENG want to at the very least get that TP.
Caps snapping
going
back
down
and recalling. G2 have made the call, it seems, to give this one up. But
there's
no,
the
TP in from Jax. Caps recalling, buying an item. That's the ulti going in from the Maokai. They want to split it. They want to 50-50 it. Skewmon against Canyon. Who can get it?
He got it!
It's Canyon in the clutch. Binding away, but the ball from Caps is there. Down goes Keen. No, lives for an extra moment. The snapback will get it done. Q, knock up onto 2. Duro on the way out. Chovy with the pushback to hold the line. But Skewmon goes in one more time. They get the objective. They get what they came for, but they paid much more than they wanted to.
And Otacon turns your teams into paperbacks as Ruler just goes in, flashes out. Nothing he can do.
There, waiting it out. Won't quite fade away in time. Caps a few more seconds. Hansama flash forward, wants to finish the job under Ruler. One more item will do it. The hail of arrows. 10-2. G2 with the gold lead in game 1. Labrov looking for the knockup. Duro next. It's an ace. It's a soul.
It's a complete blowout. 11-2 rather with a final kill. Otacon secured, Soul there as well. And GENG, look at how low these health bars are here in the Massacre at Priceless moment as they get a 2-for-1 deal. The fact that GENG is trying to contest this when they basically have 0 resistances, it clearly speaks to their desperation. And then the fact that not only do they win this fight, but they get the Soul on top of it.
And it matters. The thing is, we often talk about Chemtech, it's one of the lowest priority souls, but you have a Jax and Yone on side lane who are going to be fighting these battles relatively low health.
I was going to combo, but I saw a bit also.
Caps keeping it casual. You can hear the confidence in his voice, the execution for G2. And again, GENG got the objective. It cost them a lot. It really was Hansama in that fight. We weren't sure how much value Devaris was going to be able to get, but obviously connecting on those key targets consistently, and it's so hard for GENG to find a way onto him when their backline is being dove repeatedly.
And looking at the items, 2 item spikes now there for G2. With the Chemtech, they're going to be even harder to take down. Chovy.
Caps going in for the ult. Pushback is there. Well timed by Chovy. Ulti for ulti trade. Canyon goes into Labrov. It's tough here. GENG trying to hold on to that mid lane tower. Still have the calling for Ruler if it comes to it. Difficult for G2 to advance the game. They've got a sizable lead, but item advantages haven't quite accumulated yet. Really the biggest beneficiary of this entire situation is Broken Blade. The individual gold lead, 1.2k. It was a difficult laning phase, down almost 20 CS at one point. But now, hitting that 2-item threshold that you talked about, this is where he can really start to take off.
I feel like he's already in the air. And Keen's just a crocodile, you know? He's seeing Jax soar in the sky. And GENG, seen them fight their way out of many situations. Their team fighting is still great, but I want to highlight, I don't think that this is one of those situations where you look at the scaling and you go, well, there's always, when you reach a certain breakpoint, obviously Azir is always going to be a threat. I think Renekton, much more than he used to be, always can get value in a fight if he can get on top of a big target, take them down. But I go back again to this Jax. Such an incredibly potent pick into basically every member on GENG. And then add to that the fact that he has the biggest lead in the game. Was, as we saw in the interview that you had with him, also, I think, again, justifiably criticized for having a really weak performance, but stepping up here today.
Yeah, we saw it last year. In a lane swap meta, Broken Blade, way better stats. When all top laners were walking around just being farm bots. And this year, when he's allowed to lane 1v1, he's been falling behind and it's been falling apart. But this game, potentially the start of something new. I won't pretend that the early game stats were pretty. But holding on, finding a way to scale into this game is a big deal for G2's hopes here. Knockback is big though. Lebrov caught out, not respecting the Mega Blast Cone. Shut down for Duro, a little supportal combat. And a big misstep right ahead of Baron.
Oh, yeah, they're gonna make the call. Gonna try and play here.
Instantaneous TP.
Babs
gonna lose the snapback in a second here. Might have wanted to get another cooldown. And this
they
is
have
the thing.
to.
No matter how far ahead you feel, no matter how comfortable the game seems against a team like GENG, it's not over until the Nexus falls.
The poke is hitting though, look at the damage!
Sama, almost 6k in the last fight. How much will we get here? If the arrows keep connecting, this is gonna be big. Duro's gonna have to use the Unbreakable in a second. Taking his time, ulti into the midst of the pit. Skewmon to follow. Caps standing behind. Chovy goes golden buys a brief second, but he just sells out Ruler. The pushback is massive for Chovy. The Azir is still alive. He's free hitting, but there's just too much damage. G2 shredding through GENG. Quick flash out from Chovy. Sliding to safety. Objective down. But again, it is the fight where everything falls apart for GENG.
Pretty sure that Duro had his spellbook set on Smite there. Lebrov had his as well, but unfortunately, that whole play started with him getting down. But importantly, G2, they don't let GENG get away with nothing. The damage is already done here at the beginning of this play, and even though Caps doesn't quite find the mark, Chovy finds a stopwatch. It doesn't matter, because again, Broken Blade on this Jax immediately gets onto the back line. And GENG, they just don't have the stats, right? Chovy doesn't have the damage. If he has a death cap, then maybe Keen desperately tries to get a kill back, but Caps with the shield bow says, no thank you.
Perhaps a whoopsie indicator, perhaps just an itchy head. We'll never know. Of course, for GENG,
Could be both.
A good moment of coordination for Canyon and Duro. Because if they didn't get that steal, if they lost that 50-50 and that fight, it would start to feel completely out of hand for GENG. Caps has to be careful about stepping too far forward. Ruler really starting to hurt. We're 50 seconds away from the Elder. G2 bullying, taking space up in GENG's jungle.
And G2, I think the only way that this game truly gets out of your control, because despite everything, the Baron buff, really not going to get a ton of value, right? The Rebel Baron power play is negative, only Chovy got it. They're not going to get a ton of value. Just don't flip Elder. That's all you need to stay away from. You can set up baits, and we see right now, they're setting up a ton of vision here towards the brush. And the enemy jungle. They're on red side, or at the red buff rather. And look at that. That's not even including the saplings that I'm sure Skewmon is going to be throwing down. And you can see GENG, map shrouded in darkness.
Leveraging the Baron buff on Chovy, backing him up, shadowing him as he pushes this lane. Cap stepping up, but heal there. Canyon responding with the wind becomes lightning. Blue Trinket indicates the Elder hasn't been started, so GENG happy to play this slow. Use the prio, use access to the bottom lane to move in and take some of this vision. Get as much free information as they can with the minions. They spotted 3 now. So it can be a bit comfortable here. Canyon not too concerned, but multiple saplings. A little bit of AP in the build from Skewmon. When it pops back up, might be 2 items, so still have to respect a little bit of poke damage there.
Yeah, and I talked about the lack of AP, but not only gun the Liandries, but also the Bloodletters, right? So it is actually a pretty big deal, the damage that comes through here is GENG desperately trying to gain access, but this is where I think the threat of that Maokai comes in big. Caps looking for an angle as well, I'm sure.
G2 favored in the composition. GENG playing into the choke. Makes the Maokai ult, the Yone all powerful. Multiple ults used, traded back, but it's a quick snap out from Caps. He still has an ulti of his own. Broken Blade in the midst of the team. Backing away. 6K. The Elder starts to reset. You don't want to take a 50-50 against Canyon.
I just pull off. GENG looking to teleport Keen back in. Starrick's still available. Duro is low. There's no smite on Labrov right now, so this would just be a straight up 50-50.
G2 are stone cold. Looks like they might have found the angle. Lockup is there, immediate fall from Labrov. Chobi's not gonna have a chance to respond. The CC flawless! Hans on a rampage. G2 finding the angle. The patience, the discipline around the objective, unseen in play-ins, comes roaring out on the main stage, but it's Labrov again, over-eager. The Elder still critical, untaken, for now uncontested.
Oh, Canyon on vision. Obviously going to try and look for the steal. I don't think he should be allowed to approach this. Broken Blade, standing guard.
But it's a 2. Broken Blade has to retreat. Hans getting some poke down. Canyon with the flash. 5K. Caps going for the knockup. Everything used to deny this jungler access. But now no one's on the objective. No one's on the Drake. They're taking their time. Keen slowly burnt down.
That's going to be
Dragon
it.
set to fall as well. Keen running for his life. G2. Soul. Elder. 7K.
This is gonna, because of the delays, also set up the next Baron, I'm sure, is Chovy. Goes for an early Zhonya's, and Labrov says, thank you very much, ready with the charm. No opportunity, didn't have the flash available, so was just kind of cooked the moment he pressed that button. And then Caps ensures the follow-up. Ruler stays alive for a little bit, but in the end, Labrov does get him. And that's a worthy trade. No Ruler means so much damage gone, and yeah, that's going to be the face of a lot of GENG fans right there as this game number 1.
2 minutes on Elder. And GENG obviously have pulled a lot of rabbits out of a lot of hats, made a lot of miracles happen, but come on. Yeah, 6K gold, Elder. G2 might not be the favorites in the series, but it's feeling like a slam dunk here in game 1.
Well, particularly given how the fights played out, right? All fights, I think, have been G2 favorite. It's again that topside trio. Hans doing an incredible job of supporting, softening them up, but it's Broken Blade jumping in, Caps finding the ultimates. And Scuman with the setup is now Elder. Still another minute, and GENG, they can't really do anything. They're just gonna have to give up a good amount of objectives. And again, 20 seconds till that Baron is up here. And G2, unless something absolutely ballistic happens, should be looking at a game 1 lead here.
Broken Blade staying in the wave, quick stun. Ward hop over the wall. GENG trying to collapse somewhere, look for an angle, but it does cost him a bit of damage on the top side tower because it's only Keen left to defend it.
45 seconds.
TP coming in, matched immediately by Caps. That's the ulti out from Scuman. Push back from Chovy, a solid start, but Ruler, the culling goes completely wide. Caps over the wall, looking to find a man, looking to find the knockup, but Canyon is untouched for now. G2 descending into the base, and it's all eyes on the Broken Blade, leaping forward. Ruler can't get it done. G2 in game 1. Not a single person predicting in their favor on the desk, but they managed to find a way. And the confidence on this lineup as they close this game, as they draw first blood in this best of 5.
Absolute smackdown, Dracos. Here in the first game, GENG, it starts off rough and only gets worse from there. The early fights for G2, Caps dropping a wave left or right, who cares? When